Welcome back to Extra Shot, the podcast spilling the funniest stories in sport this week. On the pod today, Ireland's answer to Quincy Promise. Alan Shearer wades into the US election and Conor McGregor is banned from the Emirates. I'm Jack Rivlin. Zach Sweeney-Lynch is with me.
Hello, Jack.
Hello.
Good to have you back.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be back in the drizzle and the cold. It's a real contrast. You're in Norway.
I'm in Norway at the moment, yeah. In a little island in the Norwegian fjords, which is very, very nice. A little working holiday. I actually went, so we're in a really small village. There's one pizza place down the road, sort of like, just like takeaway kebab pizza place. And on the menu is Erling Haaland's favourite doner kebab pizza.
No, is it mentioned that it's in honour of him, or is it just a national?
No, I think it might be a Norwegian delicacy.
Right. Oh, you got to try that, surely. If you wouldn't mind doing it for the purposes of research, that'd be great.
Go on then, get it for lunch on the company card.
I see. I feel like barely a week is going by at the moment without a footballer caught up in a drug dealing scandal, and I've got another one for you, Zach. Former Celtic striker Anthony Stokes, you might remember him. He played for the Republic of Ireland 9 times without ever bagging a goal. But last year, he finally managed to score in Dublin when the 34-year-old was caught with $4,000 of cocaine in his car. So it's actually a pretty dramatic story. The police tried to pull him over and he refused to stop, and he began a wild 100-mile-an-hour car chase through the Irish capital. It went on for quite a long time, and eventually he sort of got onto the outskirts of the city, and Stokes and his accomplice ended up ditching their motor and legging it through a field, which, like, if you watch those police camera TV programs, that's kind of always the way the car chases end, isn't it?
They always end up like thinking that they're really well disguised, lying in a ditch somewhere. And obviously, when you've got a helicopter hovering overhead with a heat cam going in a cold, muddy ditch, is possibly the most obvious place you can hide.
Yeah, they never get away in those scenarios.
Yeah, I do love those shows. I'm picturing one through Dublin, like, because the TV commentary on the American police chases is always great. It's like, oh, he's going down the freeway. Yeah. Oh my God, like he's coming up to a roundabout. Just the Irish equivalent of that.
As you get out into the countryside as well. Anyway, obviously the old Bill having caught up with Stokesy, he was cuffed and spent the night in the slammer, and was facing pretty serious charges because he had $4,000 of coke on him. Apparently it was hidden in a sock in the air vents in the car. So I'm actually quite impressed they found it. But I think he does have a rep for a bit of a taste for coke, because while I was researching this story, I found another incident around this time where Stokesy was caught with some cocaine and arrested, and then the police tested it and it turned out not to be cocaine at all, so they let him off, which I always think must be a bit of a double-edged sword. Like, obviously you're glad you're not going to jail, but you're like, I got fucking ripped off. It's washing powder.
What was it? There was just nothing. There was nothing.
Not an illegal drug of any kind. So I don't know. Sherbet, washing powder,
bit of Daz. Yeah.
There's an element there that's quite humiliating. That must be quite annoying.
Not even your dealer respects you, or the police.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, this time they did find real coke on him. And Stokesy headed off to spend the night in the slammer. He was bailed out, and you think, you're probably on best behaviour after that. But 3 weeks later, he was caught by police jumping a red light. And once again, he refused to stop. And this led to a 20-minute car chase, once again. Needless to say, he ultimately gave himself up. And he refused a breathalyzer test on the scene. So I guess that's probably why he didn't want to stop. I guess he was over the limit. And he ended up handing over his shoelaces and returning to the familiar confines of the slammer. So 2 arrests in 3 weeks, plus this other incident where he was caught with coke that turned out not to be coke. Anyway, this week he was finally sentenced for these crimes, and he got 15 months in jail, which I think is a pretty good result.
For $4,000 worth of cocaine.
I mean, $4,000 of coke is
it was like quite a lot.
It's what, like 50 to 100 grams you're dealing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's quick drugs mass. Alarmingly quick drugs mass.
You knew that far too.
Depends if you want a 50 bag or an 80 bag, Zach. None of that pub grub
I
shit.
don't know. Maybe, probably when you're dealing in those kind of quantities, you probably get a good price. I don't know.
Yeah, especially if you're selling Daz.
Yeah.
crushed up paracetamol. Anyway, so I think it's quite a decent result, but obviously like concerning. Anthony, I think he's clearly a troubled fella, and you think his long-suffering parents would have their heads in their hands, but it turns out that a bit of bugle and a quick motorway pursuit is small potatoes compared to what Anthony's mum and dad have been accused of in the past. They run this pub in Dublin, and in April 2011, they were arrested on suspicion of gun running for the real IRA after police found bullets, stun guns, and 400 quid's worth of cocaine at the pub. I don't know if the cocaine was related to gun running or just like Anthony's other stash. He seems to be just falling off him at every opportunity.
He just hid it. He just hid it in the toilet cistern.
Yeah, almost certainly. So I should say his parents were later released without charge. They weren't the culprits. The real culprits, I don't think they were ever found. But clearly some quite mental stuff is going on there. I do have a tip for the actual culprits. If you do want to surreptitiously help the IRA, probably don't do it in a Republican stronghold. So this pub that Stokes' parents own, the outside of it is adorned with a huge 40-foot poster which has a picture of the Queen, Elizabeth II, with like a cross through it, like a no smoking sign. And it says, officially barred. She and all her family are officially barred from this pub. Which, like, if you're trying to conduct like nefarious, terrorist activities, I'll probably pick the less
stashing
obvious.
weapons for the IRA. Don't do it on a pub with a 40-foot poster barring the Queen.
I just love the idea of that sign as well, as if the Queen is like trying to get served in these spots. And
where was this?
Family.
Is this in Dublin?
It's in Dublin, yeah. It's called the Players Lounge. So actually I read that it's a very troubled pub. Besides that raid, later that year there was a firebomb attack, and another time an IRA sort of, I don't know, figure was shot there. So it all goes on. Oh, and there was an armed robbery another time. So it all goes on there. Anyway, Stokes' mum and dad eventually had to take down the banner because they wanted a late license. And the police were like, you can have one if you take down the Queen banner. So they then replaced it with like a Celtic one instead.
I'd love it if the weekend after that, Prince Charles just sort of stumbled in. It's like, hey, can I get 2 pints of Guinness, please?
Yeah, you're barred, pal.
Yeah. The Welsh side, the New Saints, were playing Fiorentina in the Conference League last week, and this was a huge game. They were the first ever Welsh team to qualify for the proper rounds of a European competition, and they're up against Fiorentina, who obviously a huge historic Italian team. They've got David De Gea, Moise Kean in their squads. New Saints, by comparison, hail from the tiny village of Llansanfrid Mechén. I'm sure I've butchered the pronunciation, I'm sure. Llansanfrid Mechén. It's something like that. Something like that.
It's like a really long one. Do you know the one I mean?
We got taught. I can say you can pronounce it, can't you? Go on.
Llanfair Pwchwingec o Gera Chwindroba Llantysilio Goch.
Wow, okay. Yeah. Impressive.
If you're Welsh, let me know. Yeah. It's good to curry some favour with our Welsh listeners.
Sounds good to me. So yeah, anyway, this tiny village has a population of 1,500 people, and that's where the New Saints hail from. So you can imagine that this whole town came to a standstill as they took on Fiorentina. I'm imagining it a bit like the Olympics, when someone from a small village gets to like the final of the javelin and the whole village gathers round in the local sports club watching the game. There's like bunting up. One of the New Saints players' mums is going around with mugs of tea and home-baked cupcakes. So in the New Saints squad was the forward Declan McManus, who, Declan spent most of his career plugging away in the Scottish lower leagues. So it was a big moment for him. I'm imagining Grandad McManus being wheeled down to see the family name up in lights. And finally, the moment came for the lineups to be screened on TNT Sport. So everyone's sitting around waiting with bated breath. Will Laura Woods utter the proud McManus family name? And his name pops up on the screen. Declan McAnus. So they've
So-
missed out the M
How?
in McManus. I don't know.
Like, it feels deliberate. Of all the names to misspell on the list, you're just imagining like the like room just falling into silence. Like the cheer goes up and then just oh.
It couldn't be a funnier name to do it to.
Did they spell any of the others wrong?
I don't know. I don't think so. Declan McAnus.
Whose fault is
The
that?
proud McManus family clan are just in bits.
Also, I'm guessing not the first time they've had to deal with that name as an insult. If you have a name like that, you know. So it's
Yeah. It never really crossed my mind that misspelling, to be honest.
I think teenage schoolboys would have found that opportunity before.
Dug that up. Yeah, it's brilliant.
How did they do against Fiorentina?
They lost 2-0, which is actually all right.
No
It
shame
was
in that.
away, so yeah. No,
It's Conference League groups, or is it just straight knockout?
I think they've got the same format as Champions League, the big league table. Anyway, the disappointment of the McManus family clan and seeing their name sullied like that reminded me of another story about Japanese player Shoyu Nakajima. So Shoyu joined the Turkish side Antalyaspor a couple of years ago, I think, and it was a really proud moment for his family. I think he'd played his whole career in the Japanese leagues, but this was his big move to Europe. So his family flew over on a 13-hour flight from Japan to see him play, and imagine they're dreaming of him scoring a spectacular bicycle kick winner in the last minute. He started on the bench, which was disappointing enough, but he came off the bench in the second half and was clearly quite hyped up because he flew straight into a 2-footer challenge and was sent off 13 seconds after coming on.
It cuts to I think it's his brother, sister, and mother in the crowd, just looking
it's
brilliant.
She so as he subbed on, they're sort of standing up and clapping, looking really excited. And then when he gets his red card, it just cuts back to his mum, who's just got her head in her hands, just like shaking her head. It's on the plus side, though, I bet he probably got 3-match ban, so plenty of time to show them the delights of Turkey.
Yeah, go and see the Bosphorus. I imagine it was quite a frosty trip around the local market, around the bazaar. You know, trying that like Turkish ice cream where the guy like whips it up in front of you and they're just in silence, none of them talking to him. Just
trying to take the guy who like steals the ice cream cone from you.
Yeah, that guy.
That's the yeah.
And they're all just can't get over Shoyu's debut.
Yeah.
Tries to take them to the original Salt Bay restaurant to cheer them up, and they're all just sitting in silence. Zach, I'm sure you are extremely excited for England's big game with Greece tonight in the Nations League tier
counting down
B,
the hours,
or whatever it's fucking called.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll probably watch it. England are predicted to play like a pretty strong side, and Bukayo Saka is arguably one of the first names on the team sheet now. You know, he's 23, but he's no longer a wonder kid. He's a big name for club and country. I saw someone describe him as arguably the most popular England player since Gaza, which is interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
There haven't been that many popular England players. I think Rooney.
Jack Grealish is pretty popular as well.
I'd say Rooney before
in
that.
a different way.
Yeah. Anyway, you know, being a senior England player, it's not all hobnobbing with Prince William and nibbling on backstage blinis with Dua Lipa. Sometimes Bukayo has to deal with some more unsavoury characters. You probably saw last week Conor McGregor, the Irish UFC head case, snuck his way onto the pitch at the Emirates after Arsenal had beaten PSG. And he like came up to Bukayo, and you know, most celebs, they just want a selfie with the players, but this is Conor McGregor, so naturally he charged at him, eyes bulging, mouth frothing, and started sort of sparring with him, kicking him in the chest and in the knees. I saw the comedian Jacob Hawley described Conor McGregor as being like a coked up divorced uncle at a wedding. I think is about right. Just not even just in this video, but just in any setting. He's just like coming at you.
Is this the latest round of Mikel Arteta's mind games with his players? It's like sort of the natural step up from hiring pickpockets to to rob them. Now he's just hiring deranged UFC fighters to assault them on the pitch.
The next one is Anthony Stokes as your Uber driver. You just get him. He's like,
don't look in the glove box.
Yeah. Check. Can you just check the glove box for me, lad? It's all part of just preparing them psychologically for the pressure of the Champions League quarterfinals. The video is really funny because obviously McGregor's sparring and he's actually properly coming at him, and you could see Saka gesturing to be like, all right, enough. And then at the end he does go, be careful, yeah. Because he genuinely fears that Conor is going to snap his cruciate ligament.
I wouldn't put it past him, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, this is Conor McGregor's standard move when he pops up at sports events. There's a really good video of him chewing Cristiano Ronaldo's ear off at a Tyson Fury fight. It's basically McGregor just yammering away at 200 miles an hour, frothing in his beard, presumably gacked up to the nines. And Ronaldo's just staring into space make this guy fucking shut up. It's a lot that meme of that. There's that uni club night and the guy's just yelling in this girl's ear and she's just staring into space blankly. It's really got that vibe.
Ronaldo sort of grimacing. And politely, could just see in his mind, just running through his mind, just please, when is this guy gonna stop?
Yeah, please stop,
please,
talking.
someone, because
So
how fast McGregor's mouth is moving as well. It's just
he's fucking mental. As a result of McGregor coming on the pitch and nearly crocking poor Bukayo, Arsenal say we're now reviewing our matchday protocols. Presumably to prevent Conor from ever coming near that squad again. And to be fair, Arsenal probably should have done that a while back when it emerged that among the fans at their old Highbury Stadium was none other than Osama bin Laden. So I can't remember if we've talked about this on the pod before, but it was always rumoured that bin Laden was a gooner and that, in between devising attacks on US embassies and worse, he had popped up in the clock end at Highbury for a Winners' Cup match. And we talked about it a while ago, and then we had a letter from a listener called Alistair who said, I sat behind bin Laden and in the clock end at Highbury at the match versus Liverpool on March 26th, 1994. It was only after he emerged as leader of Al-Qaeda and it was revealed he'd been in London in 1994 that I realised who he was, but he was pretty damn unmistakable. Very tall, beard, limped, and like a true Arsenal fan, he left early. Years later, when news got out that the man behind 9/11 was a gooner, Arsenal banned him from the ground. In your face, international terrorism.
Is that true?
Do you think it was bin Laden?
I mean, it is almost impossible to verify, but also that the guy, years later, after 9/11,
7 years later,
Osama bin Laden, 7 years later, popped up and said, I knew I recognised him from somewhere. It's that guy I sat behind 7 years ago at a match.
Well, everyone's just staring in stunned silence at BBC News as this footage of the Twin Towers ablaze comes on, and then they're cutting to the studio talking about potential culprits, who could it possibly be? Bin Laden's photo flashes up and Alistair is just it's him. It's the guy from the clock. Yeah. In his defence, bin Laden...
It's the guy who was bollocking the ref for booking Tony Adams.
Bin Laden was very tall, so I checked, he was 6'6".
6'6",
and
really?
I don't know about the limp, but I guess that's why Alistair's mentioning it. That's probably quite a distinctive character to sit behind, but you just can't rule out that it was just another tall bloke with a beard. I don't know. I think I choose to believe because there have always been these rumours that he was at a game.
Before the days of celebrity dating apps and vapid Insta hotties DMing you nudes, footballers found love in more homespun ways. They'd chat up the CEO's daughter in the director's lounge after a match, or head down to their local FHM party to try and catch eyes with someone from Girls Aloud. So you can imagine John Arne Riise's glee back in 2005 when he got hold of the phone numbers for 14 glamorous Norwegian celebrities. We're talking pop stars, movie stars, the creme de la creme of Oslo high society. And, John was feeling pretty lofty himself at this point. He just won the Champions League with Liverpool. So he thought he'd try his luck. And, being a defender, he was always taught to play the percentages. So John penned a romantic text and fired it out to all 15 of them. So this is the text he sent. Good evening. After a lot of calling to all kinds of contacts, I finally got your number. I've always thought you were very charming, cute, sexy, fantastic aura, and last but not least, you seem exciting and challenging. Winky face. Hope we can get in touch, and I will, of course, invite you on a romantic dinner for two. Another winky face. Kiss from John Arne Riise, XXX.
Right.
So, it's a nice text, and he's kind of hedging his bets there, firing out to all of them. But unfortunately for John, Oslo high society is a fairly small place, and several of these women were mates. So they very quickly realised that they'd been sent the same message, and the text ended up in the Norwegian tabloids. So journalists from those newspapers were sort of going around asking all these celebs whether they'd received the message. Miss Universe Mona Groot was approached, and she told the paper, "Well, this is a bit embarrassing, but the answer is yes. I have received messages from Riise." And in fairness, Riise came out and said that he'd only had pleasant responses to his message, which
those sound like polite knockbacks then.
yeah.
Thanks, but no thanks.
The thing is, it's actually it's quite a nice message in terms of, he's clearly put some thought into it as a sort of
as you read it out
thing.
As you read it out, Liz, our producer, rolled her eyes. She wasn't impressed.
Also, you're just jealous you didn't get the text.
You know what it says after? He goes, after a lot of calling to all kinds of contacts. Is that a bit weird?
Yeah.
It's like,
I don't know. It's kind of asking round if anyone you sort of got a crush on some celeb and
I
wants
guess.
to get a number. Yeah.
And then he says, I've always thought you seemed exciting and challenging. I guess that is quite a good line.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't just think you're fit.
I would love to receive that text from somebody.
Especially John Arne Riise.
John Arne Riise, yeah.
Do we know if any of them went for it?
I don't think they did.
I reckon it's probably yielded some results.
Yeah. So apparently in Norway for a long time, he was known as the SMS King. That was his nickname. His mum actually came out after, when this story came out, his mum came out and defended him, said that, I think she said something like, "Oh, he's a single man, and I think anybody would be happy to receive this."
Yeah. Also, it's better than like dick pic or like Trent Alexander-Arnold being like, "You sucking dick." Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's romantic.
It's romantic, yeah. It's got quite a nice sort of noughties flavour for it as well. Just sending around a group text. There are actually some other quite sweet stories of footballers meeting their other halves in the pre-internet age. So David Seaman chatted up the Highbury receptionist, which is quite cute. It's slightly less cute that he left his wife and childhood sweetheart for her.
Right.
But
I always heard that it was a quote promotions girl, which I don't know what that feels very 90s just as a job title, but I assume that sounds to me like someone who holds up a big check at like a charity event. Do you know what I mean?
Could be, yeah. I'm not sure. There's a couple of different sides to it. She worked at Highbury anyway.
Right.
They were married for a long time. Gareth Southgate,
are they not anymore?
No. So he left her for somebody he met on Dancing on Ice.
Oh yeah, the Strictly curse.
I think we talked about this on the Tuesday Club episode.
Why? Because everyone says David Seaman's like the sort of like nice, safe one, but actually he's a dirty dog.
He's a charmer. That's a nicer way to put it. But
a charmer on ice. I love the idea of it's not even Strictly; it was on Dancing on Ice.
Yeah,
slightly more budget.
They're always. Yeah, they're a real like hotspot for cheating, aren't they? Their shows. Gareth Southgate as well. He met his wife at Croydon Shopping Centre. She was working on the tills there, and Ashley Cole's first words to Cheryl were he spotted her walking in a car park outside his house and opened the window and shouted, "Hey, Hot Lips, nice ass!" at her.
It worked.
It worked. So yeah, actually, we were sent a story a few months ago about a current England footballer who we sadly can't name, who hooked up with a girl at a beach club in Ibiza. And apparently his chat up line was, "You look just like my wife."
Mental. Is that possibly a pickup artist type thing of like reverse psychology? It's like immediately positioning yourself as non-threatening by being like, "I have a wife."
Yeah.
but also being like, you're my
Sounds like
type.
you've been along. Sounds like you've been along to one of those.
I mean, I've read the game just for research purposes, of course. I would describe it as one of the most sleazy chat-up lines I've ever heard. You
Yeah.
look like my wife. It's sleazy on so many different levels. But it worked. That was this summer, wasn't it?
It was this summer, I think. Yeah.
Didn't Cristiano Ronaldo met Georgina, his wife? She was working in Madrid in like a Gucci or like
Yeah, it was Gucci
luxury
or
brand.
Dolce Gabbana.
It's a bit
or
like the
something,
Gareth Southgate one.
Yeah, I think Gareth Southgate's was slightly more budget.
JJB
More like
Sports.
JJB Sports, yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
I imagine he was like asking where he could find like a pair of beige socks.
Yeah. He's looking for those those shirts that they used to wear on Match of the Day with like a different coloured collar.
No, exactly the one you mean. Nice. If anyone else knows any good sort of stories of footballers and how they met their other halves, love to hear them. Over in the NBA, Zach, there is a lot of buzz at the moment about the possibility of Jeff Bezos, the Amazon founder, potentially buying the Boston Celtics. So I sort of thought he had his hands full with like, isn't he doing something like trying to send people to Mars and like trying to live past the age of 150? But apparently he also wants to own a sports team. And
there's no workers' rights on Mars, so he can build a warehouse there.
Yeah, and soon there won't be at the Boston Celtics either if he gets his ways. Apparently the players are a bit nervous because obviously, even the workers' rights thing aside, Bezos was like famously frugal at Amazon. He would make people use old doors as their desks. And I think he never takes the lift either.
This is not like the biggest grossing company in the world, surely.
Yeah, but famously he saves the customer money by not spending more than a penny necessary.
by people having like rusty nails sticking out of their desk.
Pretty much. Can't argue with the results.
Sitting on upturned bins.
Anyway, whatever Jeff's new rules are at the Celtics, they're probably not going to be as petty as the measure introduced by former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer when he bought the LA Clippers. So he took over the team in 2014, and one of his first acts as owners was to ban them from using Apple products. So first to go with the iPads used courtside. You know how like the coaches will have an iPad to show like a replay or a bit of like data or tactical instruction. And Steve immediately made them switch to Microsoft Surface Pros, which is, mildly annoying, just like having to work out how to use those.
Do they only have like Microsoft 95?
I've replaced all your Macs with Microsoft laptops. I mean, you laugh, but he then demanded that the players ditch their iPhones and use Microsoft smartphones. And this was 2014. So do you remember there were basically the options then for a Microsoft smartphone was either the Microsoft Lumia, which ran like a Windows version for the mobile, or a Nokia, because they just bought Nokia. So, I mean, you'd be pretty fucking pissed off if you're the player and you just want to like use Tinder or slide into the DMs of some Insta hottie, and Steve's there like, well, yeah, it's got Snake, it's got MSN Messenger. Those phones, did you ever use a Windows phone? They were fucking shit.
No,
it's not even Android. It's just like some random Windows one. And then, it must have been frustrating for the coaches as well when you're trying to send DeAndre Jordan his new workout plan and that fucking talking paperclip pops up being like, looks like you're trying to win the NBA. Can I help?
Yeah.
Got them all using Bing and listening to Microsoft Zune MP3 players. Compared to sort of the Man City approach of evil owner, where you're like trying to eliminate the competitive playing field in European football forever. And meanwhile, Steve just wants to like shift a few more copies of Microsoft Office, drive a bit more traffic to MSN.com.
What is the idea is that them using it is gonna promote the products, I guess.
I guess he just doesn't want to see any Apple products.
But surely as soon as this team starts crashing because, they're unable to communicate with each other effectively, and the whatever software it is they use for scouting just doesn't work on Windows.
Yeah, and they're printing out the team sheet on Creative Writer in Comic Sans, sending it over Outlook.
Yeah. The team talks are all written in word art.
Yeah, it's an interesting call, but fair play to him.
Maybe he should actually. That would be good if he made the club mascot the little paperclip.
Clippy's RIP, isn't he? They got rid of him.
Is he gone?
Yeah, which is arguably the only good thing about Microsoft. Although I'm not actually sure what the point of it was. I don't remember ever asking it questions.
If you speak to Leeds fans, you'd think that Marcelo Bielsa is this sort of kindly, butter wouldn't melt kind of character who wouldn't be out of place volunteering at his local animal sanctuary or doing night shifts at the soup kitchen. But yeah, it turns out the impression back in South America is slightly different. So he's managing Uruguay now. He's Argentinian, but managing Uruguay, and they had a decent Copa America. They lost in the semi-finals. There were some rumours at the time about a bit of discontent in the camp, but didn't really go anywhere. But now Luis Suarez, who recently retired from international duty, has broken the deafening omerta around Bielsa's regime. So, according to Suarez, Bielsa made life in the Uruguay camp an absolute misery. So he banned employees from their training complex from speaking to or eating with the players. He even made them use a different door to enter the building. He's also just like openly rude to the players. So Suarez said that the players had to call a meeting to ask Bielsa to say good morning to them because he refused to even say hello. He also said that he spent half time of one match comforting a distraught Darwin Nunez because Bielsa had made him cry during his team talk. And I think after this and a few other incidents, Suarez says he held this like 5-minute conversation with Bielsa where he outlined all of the issues that they'd been having. And at the end, Bielsa just replied, "Thank you very much," and just walked off.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on now. Bielsa's still in charge, but Suarez says that some of the players are refusing to be called up to duty. Fede Valverde, the Real Madrid midfielder, has also come out and said that everything Suarez has said is true. So, I mean, he's one of the big names in the Uruguay squad. So, we'll be watching that closely because
they obviously fucking hate him.
Like they hate him, yeah.
I mean, that is sort of my perception of him. Like, obviously with the interviews where he just doesn't look at the camera and just speaks in Spanish, and like, he's always known for like running his players into the ground fitness wise. Like, I always got the impression he was neurodivergent as well. But do we want to get into that?
Yeah, I don't know. He's definitely a very intense bloke.
Yeah, but I thought that's like sort of part of the charm and genius of it. It feels weird to be like, whoa, Marcelo Bielsa's mental. Like, everyone knows that, don't they?
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things that when he's on your side and everything's going well, then it's great, and you're sort of like, oh, he's such a character, and then. Or it can go the other way, and you're just like, this guy's a fucking cunt.
Bastard. Also, I guess it's a bit of a culture clash with someone like Suarez. And Suarez, at the end of his career, he kind of just wants to have some fun. And like, is playing internationals for Uruguay kind of meant to be a lot more fun? Isn't that the idea? Like a lot of these South American teams, it's like, I don't know. I always got that impression. Yeah. It's a bit more like we come and express ourselves and we all love each other. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
The looking him in the toilet thing, isn't there a thing where Bielsa would often get naked in the dressing room? I might have imagined that. Is the locking him in the toilet, when you went, they were worried about what he might do, was it?
Just like, honestly, I really don't want to see his balls again.
I've had enough.
Not after that. Not after a 3-0 defeat. That's the last thing.
I preferred it when you just didn't say good morning to me. The not saying good morning is quite funny. It's like, who cares? But I kind of get it. Yeah. I'm Team Bielsa on this, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll keep people abreast of it.
I'll be Team Suarez then. We can take sides. Yeah. Did you see Alan Shearer popped up in Kamala Harris's election campaign video? Yeah. So it was his famous, his pressure is for tyres speech at Euro 2024 after the penalty shootout against Switzerland. That clip was used bizarrely in a campaign ad.
Yeah, so it's like an attack ad at the beginning, isn't it? It's like it's flashing pictures of Trump and JD Vance's faces while listing like Trent, Palmer,
Saka, Tony,
Trent. Pressure? What pressure? And then when it says what pressure, it flips to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So is it basically saying like they're not fazed by the pressure of Trump and Vance?
Quite confusing because obviously it's listing like Palmer, Bellingham, Saka, Tony, Trent with with pictures of
Pretty much the only thing that cohort have in
Trump
common
and JD
with
Vance.
Trump.
Like, yeah, I don't know. It's a very strange choice.
Actually, Cole Palmer is known
but,
for his extremist views on immigration, isn't he? So not in common. I just love the idea that maybe Alan Shearer's speech is going to win those 5,000 votes they need in Pennsylvania, take the swing states, and win probably the most important election in generations, and he wins it for Kamala.
Yeah, I mean, did you see on Match of the Day they played the clip and then had a photoshopped image of Alan Shearer with Trump's haircut?
Yeah, very nice.
Level it
Must
out.
be quite surreal for Shearer, just like your voice being used in that. All right, Zach, before we go, I have got another comedy injury for you. We talked about a few recently. I mean, it's sort of a comedy injury. Axel Tuanzebe, you know, the old, he was a United centre-back. He's now at Ipswich. He's out for 4 matches because he was washing the dishes and he nearly cut his own thumb off.
Wow.
So there was like a freak accident. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I guess he picked up a knife and, nearly lost his thumb. So he's out for a little while.
That's not going to do his Hungry Hippos career any favours. Do you remember a few years ago, Axel, he set the Guinness World Records for Hungry Hippos. You know the Hungry Hippos game?
Yeah. It's for like really small children. Yeah.
It's like for like 2 to 4 year olds. 4 plus, I think, actually. I looked at it. And you have to like eat all the little balls with your hippos.
Did he have the world record?
Axel, he set the world record, 17.36 seconds to clear the board. He did it at some United training camp, but I looked into this and he's since been beaten by an American guy who notched 14.69 seconds.
Gutting.
So yeah, and I mean, obviously thumbs are an important fixture of your armory in a game of Hungry Hippos. So I don't think he's going to be getting bringing the crown back to Ipswich anytime soon.
Concerning for the poor lad. Probably more so than missing 4 games for Kieran McKenna. I actually came across a couple of other funny injury stories from the past. So Paulo Diogo, who played for Servette, he was celebrating a goal in 2004, and you know when there's those like metal fences in front of the fans, he was like up there on the fence, and his wedding ring got caught in the fence, and he lost most of his finger when he sort of pulled himself away. Fuck. But worst of all, the final slap in the face, he pulled away, was screaming in agony. The match stewards ran down and were looking for his digit, and the ref came over and thought he was just fucking around and booked him. Such a slap. Couple more funny ones really quickly. Darren Barnard, who played for Barnsley, he was house training his new puppy and he didn't see a huge pool of piss in his kitchen on the floor and he slipped in it and ruptured his ACL, was out for 5 months. And finally, Croatia's...
Plenty of time to house train the puppy there.
True. Yeah, by that point, it'd be a grown dog, grown mutt. And then Croatia's Milan Rapajic, he was on a flight to a match when he poked his eye out with his boarding pass and ruled himself out of the game. Really good one. Feels deliberate.
Yeah. That's
lovely. I just love a comedy injury. All right, well, get well soon to Axel and his Hungry Hippos career. Thanks a lot, Zach.
Thank you.
Enjoy the drizzle in Norway.
Thanks. It's sideways rain right now, so
perfect. Doner kebab pizza weather.
Yeah.
And thanks a lot for listening.